Listen to me. I am King Solomon, the wisest man who ever lived, and I'm about to reveal something that will change everything you think you know about influence. You talk, nobody listens, you speak. Nobody cares, you share your ideas, they fall on deaf ears. Sound familiar? Of course it does. Because you're using the same weak words everyone else uses. Here's the brutal truth. While you're being ignored, dismissed, and forgotten, there are 3 specific words that command instant attention. 3 words that make people lean in. 3 words that create magnetic attraction. I didn't rule the greatest kingdom in history by accident. I didn't become legendary by being ordinary. I mastered the art of being heard when it mattered most. And right now, you're losing opportunities every single day because you don't know these 3 words. Relationships slip away. Business deals die. Your voice gets lost in the noise. But not anymore. In the next few minutes, I'm going to hand you the exact 3 words that will make anyone stop what they're doing and listen to you like their life depends on it. These aren't motivational fluff words. These are power words, biblical wisdom, ancient secrets that still work today. Are you ready to finally be heard? Your words are programming you right now. Listen to me very carefully. Every single word that comes out of your mouth is literally rewiring your brain. You think you're just talking. You think you're just expressing yourself. Wrong. Dead wrong. You're programming yourself like a computer. And most of you are installing the worst possible software into your minds every single day. Here's what's happening inside your head right now. Every time you say, "I can't," your brain takes notes. Every time you mutter, "This is too hard," your neural pathways strengthen that belief. Every time you whisper, "I'm not good enough," you're literally carving that limitation deeper into your identity. Do you understand what I'm telling you? Your own words are your biggest enemy. Think about yesterday. How many times did you speak defeat over yourself? How many times did you use language that made you smaller, weaker, more limited? I'll tell you exactly what happened. You probably said things like, "I'm so tired. I hate Mondays. This always happens to me. I'm terrible with money. I never get lucky breaks." Sound familiar? Of course it does. Because you've been hypnotizing yourself into mediocrity. But here's where it gets really scary. Your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's repeated. It just records everything you say and assumes it's true. So when you keep saying, "I'm broke," guess what your subconscious starts doing? It starts looking for evidence to prove you right. It starts making decisions that keep you broke. It starts rejecting opportunities because they don't match your verbal programming. The Stoics figured this out thousands of years ago. They understood that words weren't just sounds coming out of your mouth. Words were tools of mental construction. They were building blocks of reality. That's why Marcus Aurelius was obsessed with controlling his internal dialogue. That's why Seneca wrote about the power of disciplined speech. They knew something you're just learning right now. Your language is creating your life experience. Every single day, every single conversation, every single thought you speak out loud becomes a brick in the prison you're building around yourself. Or it becomes a stepping stone to your transformation. The choice is yours, but most of you are choosing poorly. Want to know how the most successful people talk to themselves? They use language like a weapon. They speak to themselves the way they want their reality to be, not the way it currently is. They say, "I am wealthy," before they have money. They say, "I am confident," while they're still scared. They say, "I am successful," while they're still struggling. And their brains start working to make those statements true. This isn't positive thinking garbage. This is neural programming. This is how you literally change your brain chemistry through language. When you say, "I am powerful," your body releases different hormones than when you say, "I am powerless." When you declare, "I will succeed," your mind starts calculating paths to success instead of excuses for failure. This is measurable, this is scientific, this is real. But you've been doing the opposite your entire life. You've been using your words to reinforce every limitation, every fear, every excuse that keeps you stuck. You wake up and immediately start programming failure into your day. Another Monday. I'm so behind. This is going to be rough. And then you wonder why your life feels rough. You created it with your words. The most dangerous part, you don't even realize you're doing it. It's become so automatic, so habitual that you speak limitation without even thinking about it. You complain without consciousness. You diminish yourself without awareness. You're running negative programming in the background of your mind 24/7, and you can't figure out why you can't break through to the next level. Here's what needs to happen right now. Today, this minute, you need to become violently aware of every word coming out of your mouth. You need to catch yourself in the act of self-sabotage. You need to interrupt the pattern and replace weak language with strong language. Instead of "I hope this works," you say "this will work." Instead of "I'll try to make it happen," you say "I will make it happen." Instead of "maybe I can do this," you say "I am doing this." Feel the difference. Even reading those words changes something inside you. That's not coincidence. That's the power of language working on your nervous system in real time. Strong words create strong feelings. Strong feelings create strong actions. Strong actions create strong results. It's that simple, it's that powerful, it's that immediate. Others judge you in the first 7 words. Now let me tell you something that's going to shock you. People decide who you are and what you're worth in the first 7 words that come out of your mouth. 7 words. That's it. That's all you get to make your impression. And most of you are wasting those 7 words on weak, apologetic, uncertain language that immediately categorizes you as someone who doesn't matter. You walk into a room and what's the first thing you say? "Sorry I'm late, traffic was crazy." Boom. You just told everyone you're disorganized, you make excuses, and you don't respect their time. Or you start with "I'm not sure if this is right, but maybe." Boom. You just announced that you lack confidence and your ideas probably aren't worth listening to. Or you open with "I hate to bother you, but could you possibly?" Boom. You just position yourself as an inconvenience who's already apologizing for existing. Do you see what's happening here? Your word choices are instantly creating a hierarchy, and you're putting yourself at the bottom. You're not even getting started and you've already lost. You've already been categorized. You've already been dismissed, and it happened in 7 words or less. But here's what the powerful people do. They walk into that same room and their first words are completely different. They say "Good morning, let's get started." Or "I have 3 solutions for this problem." Or "Here's what we're going to accomplish today." Feel the difference. These words command attention. They assume authority. They create expectation. They position the speaker as someone who makes things happen. The crazy part is, it's not about your credentials. It's not about your experience. It's not about your background or your education or your connections. 2 people with identical qualifications can say 7 different words and create completely different impressions. One gets respect, attention, and opportunity. The other gets politely ignored and forgotten. The only difference is language choice. Think about your last important conversation. What were your first words? Did you open with power or apology? Did you start with certainty or uncertainty? Did you command attention or beg for it? I'm willing to bet you started weak. Most people do. They've been trained to be humble, to downplay themselves, to make themselves small so others feel comfortable. And that training is destroying their influence. Here's what happens in the listener's brain when you speak. Within milliseconds, they're categorizing you: leader or follower, confident or insecure, valuable or dispensable, strong or weak. They can't help it. It's hardwired into human psychology. We make instant judgments based on language patterns, tone, and word choice. And once that judgment is made, it's almost impossible to change. That's why weak openings are so devastating. When you start with "excuse me, I was wondering if maybe," you've already been filed under unimportant. When you begin with "I don't know if this makes sense, but," you've been categorized as uncertain. When you open with "sorry to interrupt, but," You've been labeled as intrusive. These judgments happen faster than thought. They're automatic, they're final. But when you master your opening words, everything changes. When you start strong, people lean in. When you begin with authority, they pay attention. When you open with confidence, they assume you have something worth hearing. It's that simple. It's that immediate. It's that powerful. The most successful people I know have figured this out. They've weaponized their opening words. They know that first impression is everything, and they craft their language accordingly. They don't waste time with small talk or apologies or uncertainty. They get straight to value. They open with impact. They start with strength. You want to know the secret? Stop seeking permission to speak and start assuming you deserve to be heard. Stop apologizing for your presence and start commanding attention with your words. Stop making yourself small and start making yourself significant through language. The world doesn't need another person who apologizes for existing. The world needs people who speak with authority and create value with their words. Your beliefs leak through every sentence. Here's something that will terrify you. Every single word you speak reveals exactly what you believe about yourself and what's possible for your life. You can't hide your beliefs. They leak out through your language like water through cracks. And right now, your words are broadcasting loud and clear that you don't believe you deserve success, wealth, or respect. Listen to how you talk about money. Do you say, "I can't afford it," or do you say, "That's not a priority right now"? The first statement comes from a belief in scarcity and limitation. The second comes from a belief in choice and control. Same situation, completely different belief systems. And everyone who hears you speak knows immediately which category you belong to. Listen to how you talk about opportunities. Do you say, "That's too risky for someone like me"? Or do you say, "I'm evaluating the best approach"? One belief system says you're not qualified for big opportunities. The other says you're carefully selecting which opportunities deserve your attention. Can you feel the difference? Can you hear how your beliefs shape your language? Listen to how you talk about challenges. Do you say, "This always happens to me"? Or do you say, "This is an interesting problem to solve"? One belief sees you as a victim of circumstances. The other sees you as a problem solver who thrives on challenges. Your words are literally announcing to the world which identity you've chosen for yourself. The most dangerous part is that these belief-revealing words don't just impact how others see you. They reinforce how you see yourself. Every time you speak from limitation, you strengthen that limitation. Every time you verbalize doubt, you create more doubt. Every time you express victim mentality through your words, you become more of a victim. Your speech patterns are programming your reality in real time. Want to know what wealth consciousness sounds like? Wealthy people don't say, "I can't afford it." They say, "I choose not to spend money on that right now." They don't say money doesn't grow on trees. They say money is a renewable resource that flows to those who create value. They don't say rich people are lucky. They say successful people follow predictable patterns that anyone can learn. Feel how different those belief systems are. Feel how different the energy is. Want to know what success consciousness sounds like? Successful people don't say, "I hope this works out." They say, "I'm making this work." They don't say, "Maybe I'll get lucky." They say, "I'm creating my own luck through preparation and action." They don't say, "If things go well." They say, "When I achieve this goal." Every word choice reinforces their belief in their ability to create outcomes. Want to know what victim consciousness sounds like? Victims say, "This always happens to me. Nothing ever works out. I never get breaks. Life is unfair. People like me don't get opportunities like that. I'm not lucky like other people." Every single phrase reinforces powerlessness. Every sentence strengthens the belief that external forces control their life. But here's what's really happening. Your words aren't just describing your beliefs. Your words are creating your beliefs. When you consistently speak from limitation, you start believing in limitation. When you habitually express doubt, doubt becomes your dominant mindset. When you regularly verbalize victim mentality, you become a victim. Your language is literally programming your worldview. The Stoics understood this at the deepest level. They believed that undisciplined speech led to undisciplined thinking, which led to undisciplined living. That's why they were so careful with their words. They knew that every sentence was either building strength or building weakness. Every phrase was either expanding possibility or contracting it. Every word was either moving them toward their ideal self or away from it. Right now, your beliefs about what's possible for your life are leaking out through every conversation. People can hear your limitations in your language. They can sense your doubts in your word choices. They can feel your fears in your speech patterns. And worst of all, you're reinforcing those limitations, doubts, and fears every time you speak from that place. This has to stop. Today, right now. You need to start speaking from the beliefs you want to have, not the beliefs you currently have. You need to use language that reflects the identity you're building, not the identity you're leaving behind. You need to choose words that expand possibility, not contract it. The invisible puppet masters of your mind. Let me blow your mind with something you've never considered. Right now, at this very moment, someone else is controlling your thoughts through the words they've planted in your head. You think you're thinking your own thoughts, but you're not. You're thinking the thoughts that have been programmed into you by people who understand the power of language better than you do. Turn on the news. What words do they use? Crisis, emergency, breaking news. Experts say, studies show, you should be worried about. Every single word is carefully chosen to create specific emotional states in your mind. Fear, urgency, dependency, compliance. They're not just reporting information. They're programming your mental state through language, and it's working perfectly. Look at social media. What language dominates your feed? You need this. Everyone is doing this. Don't miss out. Limited time. Exclusive access. You deserve this. Every post is designed to trigger specific psychological responses. Envy, FOMO, inadequacy, impulse. The words aren't random. They're psychological weapons aimed directly at your subconscious mind. Listen to advertising because you're worth it. Just do it. Think different. Have it your way. I'm loving it. These aren't just slogans. These are identity statements. They're telling you who you are and how you should behave. They're associating their products with your self-concept. And after hearing these phrases thousands of times, you start believing them. You start living them. But here's where it gets really sinister. The people who control the language control the thoughts. When politicians talk about tax relief, they're programming you to think of taxes as something you need relief from. When they talk about investing in our future, they're programming you to think of government spending as an investment. When they talk about protecting our democracy, they're programming you to think democracy is under attack. The words create the reality in your mind. Corporations do the same thing. They don't sell you products, they sell you identities through language. Apple doesn't sell computers, they sell thinking different. Nike doesn't sell shoes, they sell just doing it. Starbucks doesn't sell coffee. They sell being the kind of person who knows the difference between a latte and a macchiato. The language creates the identity. The identity creates the purchase behavior. Educational institutions do it too. They don't just teach subjects. They teach you to think in their language, to use their vocabulary, to accept their assumptions, to frame problems the way they frame problems. By the time you graduate, you're not just educated, you're programmed. You've been taught to think inside the box they built with their words. Even your family does it. Money doesn't grow on trees. Life isn't fair. Good things come to those who wait. Don't get too big for your britches. A penny saved is a penny earned. These aren't just sayings. These are belief systems being installed into your operating system through repetitive language. And most of these beliefs are designed to keep you small, safe, and controllable. The most powerful people in the world understand this completely. They know that whoever controls the vocabulary controls the conversation. Whoever controls the conversation controls the thoughts. Whoever controls the thoughts controls the actions. Whoever controls the actions controls the outcomes. Language is the ultimate form of control, and you've been controlled your entire life without realizing it. But here's the good news. Once you understand how this works, you can start doing it to yourself intentionally. You can start programming yourself with the language you choose instead of the language others choose for you. You can start installing beliefs that serve you instead of beliefs that limit you. You can start controlling your own thoughts through your own words. The question is, whose words are running your mind right now? Whose vocabulary have you adopted? Whose belief systems have you internalized through their language? And more importantly, are you ready to take control of your own mental programming through conscious language choice? Because right now, while you're listening to me, I'm using language to influence your thoughts. I'm choosing specific words to create specific responses in your mind. I'm structuring sentences to guide your thinking in particular directions. The difference is, I'm doing it to empower you, not control you. I'm programming you for success, not compliance. I'm installing beliefs that expand your possibilities, not limit them. The weapon you've been ignoring. Most people are verbal diarrhea machines. They spew words constantly, mindlessly, endlessly. They fill every silence with noise. They mistake volume for value. They confuse talking for communicating. And in doing so, they destroy their own power and influence because they don't understand the weapon they're ignoring: silence. Listen to how powerful people speak. They don't rush to fill pauses. They don't explain themselves endlessly. They don't justify every statement they speak. They pause. They let their words sink in. They create space for impact. They understand that silence is not empty space. Silence is concentrated power waiting to be released. When someone asks you a question, what do? You immediately start babbling. You rush to respond. You fill the air with words before you've even figured out what you want to say. Wrong. Dead wrong. The most powerful response is to pause. Think, consider, then deliver your answer with precision and confidence. That pause creates tension. That tension creates attention. That attention creates influence. Think about the most memorable conversations you've ever had. Were they with people who talked nonstop? Or were they with people who spoke carefully, deliberately, with meaningful pauses between their thoughts? I guarantee it was the latter. Because when someone speaks less, each word carries more weight. When someone pauses before responding, you pay more attention to what they say next. The Stoics mastered this completely. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Be like the rocky headland on which the waves constantly break. It stands firm, and round it the seething waters are laid to rest." He wasn't just talking about external challenges. He was talking about the constant pressure to speak, to react, to fill silence with words. The powerful person stands firm in silence while others crash against them with unnecessary words. Seneca said, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." In conversation, silence is the end that creates the beginning. When you stop talking and create silence, you force the other person to fill that space. And in filling it, they reveal what they're really thinking, what they really want, what they really fear. Silence is the most powerful interrogation tool ever created. But you've been taught to fear silence. You've been programmed to think that quiet moments are awkward. You've been conditioned to believe that not talking means not contributing. So you fill every pause with meaningless chatter. You explain points that were already clear. You add unnecessary words to statements that were already complete. And in doing so, you dilute your own impact. Here's what happens when you master strategic silence. First, people start paying more attention when you do speak, because they know your words are valuable. They know you don't waste their time with meaningless noise. Second, you start thinking more clearly before you speak. Because you're not rushing to fill silence, you can actually process your thoughts and deliver them with precision. Third, you create natural tension that makes your words more memorable and impactful. Watch how amateurs handle negotiations. They talk constantly. They explain their position over and over. They justify every request. They fill silence with nervous chatter, and they lose every single time because they're giving away all their power through unnecessary words. Watch how masters handle the same negotiations. They state their position clearly, then they shut up. They let the silence do the work. They let the tension build. They force the other person to respond. And when the other person starts talking to fill that uncomfortable silence, they reveal their true position, their real constraints, their actual priorities. The person who speaks first after a price is given loses, every time. This isn't just about negotiations. This is about every important conversation in your life. When your boss asks you to take on extra work, don't immediately start explaining why you can or can't do it. Pause. Let them feel the weight of their request. Then respond with precision. When someone asks you for a favor, don't rush to say yes or no. Create a moment of silence that shows you're considering the value of your time and energy. When someone challenges your position, don't immediately defend yourself with a flood of words. Pause. Let their challenge hang in the air. Then respond with calm authority. The most powerful word in any language is the word that doesn't get spoken, the sentence that stays unfinished, the response that comes after a meaningful pause, because in that silence, the listener's mind starts working. They start filling in the blanks. They start convincing themselves. They start selling themselves on your position before you even speak. Master this weapon. Use silence like a surgeon uses a scalpel, precisely, purposefully, powerfully. Stop being afraid of quiet moments. Start creating them intentionally. Stop filling every pause with noise. Start using pauses to amplify your impact. Stop talking constantly. Start speaking strategically. The 3 words that rewire reality. Now I'm going to give you something that will change everything. 3 simple words that have the power to completely transform how people respond to you. 3 words that can turn rejection into acceptance. 3 words that can shift resistance into compliance. 3 words that can change minds, influence decisions, and create the outcomes you want. Are you ready for this? Because once you understand these 3 words, you'll never communicate the same way again. The first word is imagine. This single word is psychological dynamite. When you say imagine, you're not just asking someone to think. You're asking them to create. You're inviting them into a mental movie where they're the star. You're bypassing their logical resistance and going straight to their visual cortex. Imagine opens the door to possibility in a way that no other word can. Most people start conversations by stating facts. Our product costs less. This solution is better. You should choose us. All logical, all boring, all forgettable. But when you start with imagine, everything changes. Imagine never having to worry about this problem again. Imagine what your life would look like if this worked perfectly. Imagine how you'll feel when this is completely handled. Can you feel the difference? One approach is pushing information at them. The other is pulling them into an experience. Here's why imagine is so powerful. The human brain can't tell the difference between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. When you ask someone to imagine something, their brain starts creating neural pathways as if they're actually living that experience. They start feeling the emotions. They start seeing the possibilities. They start believing in the outcome. And once someone has imagined themselves succeeding with your help, they're already halfway to saying yes. The second word is you know. This phrase is pure psychological gold. When you say you know, you're creating instant rapport. You're suggesting that you and the listener share common knowledge, common experience, common understanding. You're making them feel intelligent and included. You're transforming a one-way presentation into a two-way connection. Listen to how different these feel. Most people struggle with time management versus, you know how frustrating it is when you're constantly behind schedule. The first is a general statement about other people. The second makes the listener the center of attention. It assumes they have personal experience with the problem. It creates emotional resonance instead of intellectual distance. Also creates a psychological phenomenon called the consistency principle. When someone agrees with your statement, they become psychologically committed to agreeing with what comes next. It's like getting someone to nod their head. Once they start nodding, they keep nodding. You know how important it is to make the right choice here. Gets them agreeing before you even make your recommendation. The third word is because. This word is perhaps the most powerful persuasion tool in human language. When you give someone a reason, even a weak reason, they're far more likely to comply with your request. The word because triggers an automatic response in the human brain that says, "This makes sense," even when it doesn't really make sense at all. Harvard did a study where they had people asked to cut in line at a copy machine. When they just asked, "Can I cut in line?" only 60% of people said yes. When they gave a real reason like, "Can I cut in line because I'm in a hurry?" 94% of people said yes. But here's the shocking part. When they gave a completely meaningless reason like, "Can I cut in line because I need to make copies?" 93% of people still said yes. The word because was doing almost all the psychological work. Think about what this means for your conversations. Instead of just making statements, you start giving reasons. Instead of just presenting options, you start explaining why. "You should choose this because it will save you time and money" is infinitely more persuasive than "you should choose this." The content after because almost doesn't matter. The word itself triggers compliance. But here's where these three words become absolutely unstoppable when you use them together. Imagine you know what it feels like to finally solve this problem because you made the right decision today. Can you feel how that sentence works on multiple levels? Imagine gets them visualizing success. Creates personal connection and emotional resonance. Because provides the logical justification for taking action. Or try this. You know how good it feels to make a decision you're completely confident in. Imagine that feeling because you chose the solution that actually works. The combination creates a complete psychological experience. Connection, visualization, and justification, all in one seamless flow. These aren't just words. These are cognitive triggers. They're psychological tools that bypass conscious resistance and create unconscious compliance. They work because they align with how the human brain naturally processes information and makes decisions. When you master these three words, you're not just communicating more effectively. You're communicating in the language of influence itself. Practice this right now. Take any message you need to deliver and restructure it using these three words. Instead of presenting facts, start creating experiences. Instead of making statements, start building connections. Instead of giving orders, start providing reasons. Feel how much more persuasive your communication becomes when you use the psychological power of language instead of fighting against it. The ancient code of influence. Let me take you back 2,000 years to understand something that most people will never figure out. The Stoics weren't just philosophers sitting around thinking deep thoughts. They were the most powerful, influential people in their world. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire. Seneca advised emperors. Epictetus shaped minds that shaped history. And they all understood something about language that gave them incredible power over themselves and others. The Stoics believed that words were not just communication tools. Words were weapons of mental warfare. Every sentence you spoke was either building strength or building weakness. Every phrase was either expanding your power or contracting it. Every word was either moving you toward your ideal self or away from it. They understood that undisciplined speech led to undisciplined thinking, which led to undisciplined living. That's why they developed what I call the ancient code of influence. A system of language principles that made them incredibly powerful communicators. These weren't just speaking techniques. These were philosophical frameworks for using words to create reality. And today, I'm going to break this code down for you in a way that will revolutionize how you think about communication. First principle, every word must serve a purpose. The Stoics had zero tolerance for meaningless chatter. They didn't speak to fill silence. They didn't talk to hear their own voices. They didn't waste words on complaints or excuses or justifications. Every single word that came out of their mouths was designed to either teach, inspire, direct, or strengthen. If a word didn't serve one of those purposes, it didn't get spoken. Think about how radically different your communication would be if you followed this principle. No more small talk about the weather. No more mindless complaints about traffic. No more pointless gossip about other people's lives. No more verbal filler that adds no value to anyone's existence. Just purposeful, intentional, powerful communication that moves situations forward and creates positive outcomes. Second principle, speak to the soul, not just the mind. The Stoics understood that purely logical arguments rarely change behavior. People don't make decisions based on facts alone. They make decisions based on how those facts make them feel. So the Stoics crafted their language to touch the emotional core of their listeners. They used words that painted pictures, told stories, and created experiences that resonated at the deepest level. This is why Marcus Aurelius wrote Meditations the way he did. He wasn't just presenting philosophical concepts. He was creating emotional experiences that help people feel truth, not just understand it. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Feel how that sentence works on you. It's not just information, it's transformation through language. Third principle, structure creates influence. The Stoics knew that it wasn't just what you said that mattered. It was how you structured what you said. They understood that the human mind responds to certain patterns of language more powerfully than others. So they arranged their words in sequences that built momentum, created tension, and led listeners to inevitable conclusions. This is exactly what I've been doing with you throughout this entire presentation. I'm not just sharing information randomly. I'm structuring every sentence, every paragraph, every section to guide your thinking in specific directions. I'm using the ancient Stoic framework to create maximum impact with every word I speak, and you can feel it working on you right now. Fourth principle, silence is more powerful than speech. This might be the most counterintuitive principle of all. The Stoics believed that the most powerful communicators were not the ones who spoke the most, but the ones who spoke the least while still achieving their objectives. They used silence as a tool of emphasis, creating space for their words to penetrate deeply into the listener's consciousness. Seneca said, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." In communication, silence is the end that creates the beginning. When you stop talking, you force others to start thinking. When you create pause, you create power. When you master silence, you master influence itself. Fifth principle, your words must align with your actions. The Stoics had no patience for people who spoke one way and lived another way. They understood that credibility was the foundation of all influence. And credibility came from perfect alignment between what you said and what you did. Your words had to be backed by your character, or they became worthless noise. This is why Stoic leaders were so incredibly influential. When Marcus Aurelius spoke about self-discipline, everyone knew he lived it. When Seneca wrote about rational thinking, everyone could see it in his decisions. When Epictetus taught about inner strength, everyone could witness it in his behavior. Their words had power because their lives gave those words authority. These 5 principles created a communication system so powerful that it influenced civilization for centuries. And these same principles will work for you today if you have the discipline to apply them. But here's the challenge. Most people won't do the work required to master these principles. They want quick tricks and easy techniques. They want to speak with power without building the character that gives words their power. The Stoics would tell you that true influence comes from becoming the kind of person whose words naturally carry weight. It comes from developing the inner strength that makes your outer communication irresistible. It comes from aligning your speech with your values so completely that people can feel the authenticity in every word you speak. So there you have it, 3 words that will completely transform how the world responds to you. Imagine, because these aren't just words. These are psychological weapons that bypass resistance and create instant connection. These are the tools that separate the influential from the invisible. But here's what's going to happen next. You're going to hear these words and think, that's interesting. You're going to nod your head and feel good about learning something new. And then you're going to do absolutely nothing with this information. Just like 90% of people who watch this video. Don't be like them. Don't let this moment pass without action. Right now, while this knowledge is fresh in your mind, while you can feel the power of these words, you have a choice to make. You can either transform your communication immediately, or you can go back to being ignored, dismissed, and forgotten. The person sitting next to you at work doesn't know these 3 words. Your competition doesn't understand this psychology. Most people will live their entire lives without discovering what you just learned. That gives you an unfair advantage. But only if you use it. Start today. Start with your next conversation. Start with the next person you meet. Use imagine to pull them into possibility. Use to create instant connection. Use because to make your requests irresistible. Feel the difference immediately. This isn't theory anymore. This isn't information anymore. This is transformation happening in real time. Every word you speak from this moment forward can carry more weight, create more impact, generate more influence than ever before. The question isn't whether these words work. The question is whether you'll work them. Not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, not when the moment is perfect. Right now, today, this conversation, this opportunity, this transformation that's waiting for you to claim it. Because while you're hesitating, while you're thinking about it, while you're planning to implement this someday, other people are using these exact words to get promoted, close deals, build relationships, and create the life you want for yourself. Stop waiting for permission. Stop waiting for confidence. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. The perfect moment is now. The transformation starts now. Your new level of influence begins now.